Extreme weather is causing death, destruction and displacement around the world. From Chiba in Japan to the forests of Europe to the Midlands here in the UK, normal life has been disrupted by water, heat and fire. In eastern Japan, unprecedented rain has overwhelmed roads, railways and homes near Tokyo. At least 8 people have died. A maximum level alert was issued for landslides and flooding. More than 400,000 were forced to evacuate and many more remain stranded or without power after a month's rain fell in just a single hour. Well, across Europe, the danger is heat. Wildfires there have led to hundreds of people being evacuated from towns and villages across Germany and France. While in Croatia, hundreds of tourists and residents were forced to flee a town on the country's Adriatic coast after flames swept through surrounding pine forests. And here in the UK, firefighters are still tackling blazes that destroyed homes, giving some people only moments to grab their belongings ahead of the fast-moving flames in the West Midlands. 19 people are in hospital. And this is the live heat map showing Europe right now as it endures the 5th heat wave of the year. More than 150 million people across the continent are set to see temperatures top 35 degrees Celsius today. We will go across Europe and bring you up to date with the very latest, but I want to start with that unprecedented flooding in Japan. This resident of Chiba City, one of the worst hit spots, described what it was like there.
It wasn't raining when I closed the shop. It started raining in the evening, so I came back to check. But in the middle of the night, it was so pouring, so heavy, there was nothing I could do. Even inside the house, the sound of the thunder and rain was intense. It was completely out of the ordinary.
Well, let's cross over live to Tokyo to speak to our correspondent there, Kurumi Mori. Kurumi, so we heard there the man describing the rainfall, unprecedented in such a short space of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the word he used, out of the ordinary. That's exactly what residents here have described as well. Japan's official weather agency, the JMA, has declared this an unprecedented record rainfall for Chiba Prefecture. Now, Chiba Prefecture is not far from Tokyo. It's just to the east. It borders Tokyo. It's not far from here. But 8 people so far, at least, have been confirmed dead, according to public broadcaster NHK. And weather officials are saying the downpours may not be over. It's evening here in Tokyo, now a bit past 8 p.m., but they're saying we could see more rain into tomorrow. So it is still something to watch.
Certainly. And can you give us an understanding of how prepared the country is?
Yeah, I think that the Japanese summers, we do have heavy rain. It's just not to this extent. It is quite extreme, I think, what we've been seeing. Even all day, we've been bringing updates about this storm. And we saw in Tokyo flash rain and then followed by bright blue skies. So it is just the extreme on both ends of this weather. But there are power outages still and issues with running water. We got an update just within the past hour from government officials who say roughly 18,000 households are still without power as of last check. And there are still people, hundreds of thousands were first evacuated last night, a lot of them returning to their homes, but still thousands still in safety in government buildings, in evacuation centers. I did speak to a Chiba resident a short while ago who said actually that the water came up to his knees inside his home. And in his neighborhood, there are abandoned cars scattered, just stuck in the floods and just left out on the roads.
Well, look, thanks so much, as always, just for bringing us up to date and for getting the situation on the ground there. That was Kurumi Mori, who has been speaking to residents in Chiba, one of the worst affected areas. Kurumi, thank you, as always. So that's the situation in Japan. Well, we've been reporting much of Europe is facing yet another heat wave with wildfires in a number of areas, leading to evacuation orders. Authorities in Germany have told almost 2,000 people to leave their homes in the village of Guy, which is near the Belgian border, following a fire in nearby woodland. And in France, hundreds of villagers have been evacuated from the village of Luglon after a wildfire broke out amid the local pines. The prefect of Landes gave this update.
The fire has been slowed, but it's still progressing. That means we need to be particularly vigilant and spare no effort, because we expect there could still be sudden flare-ups. So we'll have to tackle it as soon as possible, which is what we've been doing since yesterday.
So the situation there in France. Let's talk to BBC Weather's Darren Bett. And Darren, really complicated, really difficult situations given that Europe's enduring its 5th heatwave. Just talk us through the hotspots.
Yeah, part of the problem is just this prolonged nature of the heat, which is leading to wildfires, driven by climate change, of course, which is increasing the frequency and intensity of wildfires because you're getting more drought, high temperatures, and that just provides the fuel for the fires, if you like. Hottest weather recently has been across Western Europe. Yesterday in Nantes in France, there was an August temperature record. It was 40 degrees. It's 40 degrees in Seville and Cordoba, which is not unusual for this time of the year. And there are red temperature warnings across parts of Italy, particularly in the west. Temperatures in Rome are going to be around 38 degrees. Over the next few days, it's really going to cool down quite a lot across western parts of Europe because the heat is going to push its way further east. Temperatures in Bratislava, Prague and Vienna are going to be around 35 or 36 degrees. But bear in mind, it was earlier on this month that in those sort of areas that you were seeing record temperatures.
And Darren, I've got to ask you, the critical question, when will we see some respite? What about some rain?
In Europe as a whole, yeah. Well, this cooling down could be accompanied by some rain across western parts of Europe. You tend not to get a huge amount of rain further east and south across Europe. Most of it comes from thunderstorms, which in turn can lead to more wildfires. Those thunderstorms tend to develop over the mountains in particular, but you don't get an awful lot of rain. Atlantic weather systems don't tend to come in across southern parts of Europe. They're feeding their way into Scandinavia, where actually at the moment is quite cool.
And in terms of the wildfires, we know that nearly 2,000 people have been evacuated from Guy Village in Germany near the Belgian border. Wildfires are a real concern.
Well, yes, they are. There are currently something like 70 active wildfires across Europe. The burn area is well above average. We're approaching 600,000 hectares that have been burnt, which is actually less than it was last year. Currently got wildfires not just across Germany, but in Spain, Sicily. The Balkans have got quite a few wildfires, and also into Ukraine. There's quite a few wildfires around here as well.
Darren, as always, thanks so much for just talking us through the situation across the continent. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Busy time for our colleagues at the BBC Weather Centre. Now, here in the UK, firefighters are continuing to tackle fires for a second day across the West Midlands. Multiple fires tore through the region yesterday, destroying homes and forcing dozens of residents to evacuate. 19 people were taken to hospital. Officials say a fire in Stourbridge was one of the most significant that they'd had to deal with. Sean Dilley has this report.
The gutted shells of homes in Stourbridge. This, though, is just one scene of devastation locally. Several grass fires are believed to have started near a golf course, forcing residents from their homes.
I went out with a hose pipe trying to damp the fence down, but it didn't make any difference. It was just so quick, and it was 10 foot, 12 foot high. It was way above me. I tried to stay there as long as I could, but it overpowered me in the end, so I had to come in.
Around 100 firefighters were deployed to the area to tackle several fires. Residents described flames cutting through woodland.
I have been in touch with the Prime Minister this evening that has offered the region his support and the government support, and I will be talking to the Chief Fire Officer a bit later this evening and conveying to him the thanks to the Prime Minister for the work the Fire Service have been doing.
Several people have been treated for smoke inhalation. A child and 3 firefighters are among those taken to hospital. Last night, the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, said it was awful to see communities and homes hit by fires across the country tonight as the heat wave continues. My thoughts are with everyone affected, particularly those who have been injured or forced from their homes, and with the firefighters who have been taken to hospital. He said he's in touch with local leaders and he paid tribute to firefighters, urging people to stay safe and follow their advice. Multiple fires were reported in Birmingham's Druids Heath, and major responses were also triggered in Worcestershire and in Warwickshire. In Stoke-on-Trent, homes were evacuated, causing upset and fear.
Well, I'm really surprised, yeah, and when you look at the house, we can see at the moment really devastated, the roof's out and everything. Yeah, and people are telling us there's 5 or 6 houses now that are totally burned out. Yeah.
A lot of people here that don't know if they're going back to anything or if they've got anything left.
If it happened to me, I wouldn't know where to look. But as a community, we're here for it.
The West Midlands Fire Chief Simon Toohill thanked his fire crews, who he said have been working incredibly hard in some of the most challenging conditions I've ever seen in 28 years of the fire service. He said, "I am deeply grateful for all they have done." Emergency services are experiencing high numbers of calls as Britain's hot weather stretches resources. The ask from authorities is to only dial 999 in a genuine emergency to help prioritise demand. Sean Dilly, BBC News.
Well, these extreme global weather events are putting severe pressure on food security. Here in the UK, the exceptionally hot spring and summer has experts warning that this year's harvests could be the worst on record. Wheat, barley and oat yields are still all expected to fall. And the UK's cereal harvest, which includes critical staples like rice, wheat and maize, is on track to be the worst since records began in 1984, with recent forecasts projecting a 2.5 million metric tonne drop in supply. Meanwhile, in South Korea, farmers there say that potatoes are boiling in the ground as record temperatures grip the region. And it's already impacting consumers. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization says that global food prices have hit their highest in 3.5 years, with heatwaves compounded by conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. Well, we can talk to Kaveh Zahedi with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. Kaveh, we've been talking about concerns over cereals, over rice in the UK, potatoes in Korea. Just talk us about the hotspots, the products that the UN is concerned about.
Well, we're concerned across the board because the combined impact of the droughts and the extreme heat that we're seeing is becoming essentially a serious threat to food security. Of course, extreme heat, first and foremost, we see an impact on the staple crops that feed the world. We're talking about maize, rice, soy, wheat, some of the ones that you mentioned. We know that for every 1 degree increase in average global temperatures, there's going to be around a 7% decrease in yields for these 4 major crops that essentially provide 60% of global calories. But these are global averages, and we know that single events can have much, much bigger impacts. And we've seen that play out, including in the previous El Nino cycle.
Well, on that, scientists are predicting a super El Nino event, that hot air event in the early part of next year. How is that going to exacerbate what we're already experiencing?
Well, it's just going to magnify what we're already experiencing. We don't know exactly what El Nino holds in store for us this time around. Previous El Ninos are not necessarily a perfect prediction of the current ones, but we've already seen, as you say, that this is going to be a strong one because of the ocean temperatures. What we saw last time, the last cycle of El Nino, was extraordinary impacts. I mean, you take a country like Morocco. In the last cycle, you saw extreme drought, extreme heat that led to over 40% drop in cereal yields and a complete a failure, I guess, of the olive and citrus production. We saw cereal prices and yields drop in South Africa, potato in India, fruit and vegetables in Mexico, rice in Indonesia. The list goes on, and I guess that's what's in store.
What's your advice then? What's the priority here in order to build a resilient food system? Is it crop rotation? Is it completely revisiting the types of foodstuffs that we will be consuming going forward?
Absolutely. You've named some of the solutions. I mean, first and foremost is early warning. Yep. Our farmers have to know what's around the corner to help them with their planning so that they know what to plant, when to plant it, what to store, how to store fodder, water, choose the right kind of drought and heat tolerant seeds and breeds. All of these are going to be about building resilience. We have to invest more in these kinds of practical solutions that save water, that help to maintain moisture in our soil. So really, it's so much about anticipatory action, so much about early warning to prevent the worst of what the El Nino could bring.
When you're obviously from the UN, when you're talking to governments, when you're advising them, are you sensing that governments across the world are taking this seriously?
Absolutely, because in many cases, it's not just a singular event that governments are responding to. Certainly, El Nino will magnify some of the impacts, will heighten some of the impacts, especially on food and agriculture. But the solutions at hand are the same solutions that the governments have been trying to put in place to deal with climate change. It is about, as you said, building resilience in our food and agriculture. In some cases, it is about planting differently. In some places, it is about rotating, as you said. But it is really many of the solutions to the El Nino year that we are facing ahead of us are the same as we have to put in place to build resilience to changing climate.
And where do you predict, in terms of food shortages, in terms of real hunger amongst the local populations, where do you see the worst places?
The same places that already are suffering from hunger and malnutrition. I mean, you have 700 million people in the world suffering from hunger. Obviously, those hunger hotspots are going to face the brunt of the additional impacts. It's places where you see a convergence of crises, whether it's conflicts, it's climate change, shortage of water, etc. Those are the hotspots, and they are not in one single place. You see them across the continents, across the globe.